Rumors spread through a tavern about a mysterious ruler who commands a harem of monster girls and dominates neighboring countries through overwhelming power. Shrouded in a dark cloak, the feared ruler known as the Monster Girl Harem Lord is revealed to actually be human. He resides within a fortified stone castle surrounded by strange plants and anthills, using abilities that let him command the power of many species. Standing beside two beast girls, Shiro learns that a remote border country refused to release their human slaves as demanded. With a cold expression, Shiro vows to eradicate every old ruler clinging to slavery, declaring troops will be sent to enforce his will. The story shifts back to Japan, where Professor Asada Shiro works diligently as a doctor of agricultural science at the university's plant ecology laboratory. His graduate students labor alongside him in the research fields, joking that his lessons always feel like real farming rather than lectures. Zone's student gushes that Sensei carries a truly magnificent dream, calling it an honor just to assist him with simple chores. That dream is to save the millions of children who die from malnutrition worldwide each year through his agricultural research. Shiro explains that silver vine grows vigorously, requiring both male and female plants, while serving as food and medicine to fight famine. He gently scolds a student for doubting the plant, insisting nobody should underestimate the true usefulness of silver vine. At a hospital bedside, his sister Hana suffers in pain, revealing that her tragedy is the true reason behind his tireless research. Walking away afterward, Shiro reflects on a strange emptiness inside him, promising himself he will save children throughout the world before heading to work. Back at the research farm, a student swinging his tool suddenly strikes something unexpectedly hard buried beneath the soil. Shiro hears a sharp metallic clang and realizes with horror that the object is an unexploded bomb right before it detonates. Through the smoke, Shiro desperately checks whether his students survived, finding them battered but alive amid the wreckage. Looking around, they realize the buildings resemble a pre-modern era, and an enormous tree grows far taller than any plant should naturally allow. Confused and alarmed, the group is suddenly surrounded and attacked by armed figures emerging from the surrounding vine-covered fields. A fox-eared girl with a flowing tail steps forward, demanding to know if they are truly humans and questioning their unfamiliar clothing. When Shiro tries to speak, she cuts him off sharply, declaring that she is the one asking the questions here. Shiro introduces himself as Professor Asada from K University, explaining the other two are simply his students traveling together. Lady Savannah dismisses his explanation entirely, declaring she doesn't care who he is since he will only serve as entertainment. Guards separate the group, dragging Shiro toward the arena while ordering the younger ones taken straight to the slave rooms instead. Wandering through the settlement, the students marvel at the Therianthrope town, amazed by the cat-eared residents filling every street. Shiro watches uneasily as a girl butchers what appears to be the carcass of a massive ant nearby. Loud cheering echoes from a towering structure, prompting Savannah to invite Shiro inside and witness the spectacle himself. Inside the arena, Shiro realizes with horror that beastmen are forcing a small human girl who resembles his sister Hana to fight. The girl named Mia taunts the frightened slave, warning that she will strike first if her opponent refuses to move. With a single devastating blow, Mia knocks the human slave down completely as the crowd erupts in cheers. Refusing to stop, Mia continues attacking mercilessly, while onlookers question why the human never fights back at all. Shiro recognizes the pattern instantly, comparing it to cats toying cruelly with prey they have already caught and cornered. The scene stirs a painful memory of his own household, where cruelty toward the weak went unpunished and unnoticed. He realizes this society is worse still, since everyone here openly approves of the suffering and clearly enjoys watching it unfold. In his memory, a bitter boy threatens to silence his sisters permanently if their whining continues to annoy him. Furious, Shiro shouts at Mia not to dare touch his students, only for her to threaten his throat instead. Mia coldly explains dozens of slaves die in this arena daily, insisting there's no reason to make a fuss over it. Disgusted by the world's cruelty, Savannah admits she cannot match them physically, but possesses something powerful enough to destroy everything. Noticing Shiro climbing down toward the arena floor, the girls scream warnings that escaping the fight is simply impossible now. Standing firm despite his bound hands, Shiro glares down at the sobbing, battered slave girl lying helpless beside him. Shiro demands Mia treat the injured child properly, declaring he will fight in her place while Savannah watches, stunned by his defiance. The crowd murmurs as an unusual match begins, with Mia grinning and declaring she likes doing whatever she pleases here. The announcer introduces Mia, their star warrior, pitting her against the human slave known as Asada Shiro. Spectators mock Shiro's clumsy stance, insisting his bent posture guarantees he stands no chance against Mia at all. Mia dismisses him as a total amateur, warning he will deeply regret trying to protect the girl once she strikes. Shiro barely dodges her pounce, having noticed cats instinctively wiggle before attacking, giving him just enough time to react. He desperately throws dirt toward her face, hoping the crude tactic might blind her long enough to gain an advantage. After spotting something earlier in town, Shiro secretly gathered silver vine fruit galls, gambling everything on whether his plan would succeed. He recalls that ants carrying iridomyrmecin intoxicate cats, explaining why some beastfolk extract and sell the substance like a narcotic drug. Since silver vine contains several compounds that intensely affect feline creatures, Shiro remains confident his improvised plan should absolutely work. The gamble pays off immediately, as Mia's body reacts strongly and her composure completely collapses in front of the crowd. Trembling and overwhelmed, Mia insists weakly that such a simple trick surely cannot affect her for very long. Shiro realizes that any further contact now sends overwhelming sensations rushing through her entire body without any resistance. Spectators watch in disbelief as Mia begins pleading for more, completely losing her composure in front of everyone present. Remembering felines have a sensitive spot near their tails, Shiro exploits it further, leaving Mia trembling and crying out helplessly. Overwhelmed entirely by the sensation, Mia loses control of her body completely, humiliated in front of the cheering crowd, ashamed and unable to move. Mia is dragged away by furious beastmen who scold her for losing so pathetically. Exhausted and defeated, Mia realizes she can never show her face inside this arena as a warrior again. Shiro quietly apologizes to her, admitting he had no other option since brute strength alone could never secure his victory. Summoner urges the officials to strike the gong immediately, sparing the girl from further humiliation in front of the audience. The gong sounds loudly as Shiro is declared the winner, walking away calmly while the crowd erupts into booing all around him. Furious over her defeat, a beastman storms through the halls demanding compensation, while others question what happened to Mia during the match. Savannah confronts Shiro, reminding him she has fulfilled her part of their agreement by ensuring the injured child receives treatment now. Two beast girls react with shock as orders come down to carry the injured slave girl straight to the medical office. Savannah coldly remarks that losing slaves normally receive no treatment at all, though she insists such care remains a basic human right. Later, Savannah questions Shiro directly when he approaches her again, curious what kind of deal he intends to propose this time. Shiro reveals he crushed the silver vine fruit galls into powder, the very substance he secretly used against Mia earlier. Savannah muses she could simply kill him and seize his fields, yet acknowledges the powder could bring enormous profit if sold properly. Shiro proposes she hire him instead, explaining that cultivating silver vine correctly requires specialized knowledge her people simply do not possess. Intrigued, Savannah tastes the powder herself, immediately overwhelmed by an intense euphoric sensation spreading rapidly through her entire body. Completely entranced, Savannah declares the feeling amazing, claiming she could soar all the way to the top of the world tree. Losing herself entirely to the sensation, Savannah demands satisfaction from Shiro while her attendants watch in stunned disbelief nearby. Reasoning that spreading the drug would corrupt their society from within, Savannah agrees to join forces and sell it together. Savannah admitted quietly that the previous victory hadn't come purely from the drug, while a girl watched him leave. Shiro burst into the settlement asking where the infirmary was, then kicked the door open, finding Savannah already inside caring for someone. Inside, the injured slave girl lay wrapped in crude leaf bandages, sweating heavily, while Shiro muttered that such treatment looked painfully primitive, declaring he would handle her care himself. Shiro pushed forward as the fox healer protested that a mere human had no right to interfere. He pressed mugwort leaves against her wounds, explaining their hemostatic and antibacterial properties. While Savannah arrived and ordered the healer to let him work, Shiro cursed quietly, admitting his agricultural knowledge suited farming and food cultivation better than urgent medical care. Though stopping the bleeding mattered most, staring at the tower holding her, Shiro admitted this fell outside his expertise, yet swore silently that he would save the girl regardless. Hours later, relief washed over him as the girl blinked awake, and he assured her the wound wasn't deep, promising she would recover fully, weak but grateful. The girl thanked Shiro for saving her life, calling him Oni-shan while clapping softly beside his shoulder. Savannah called the scene touching, then teased Shiro for going to such lengths over a girl she considered a useless little brat. The bespectacled student defended Shiro, insisting he wasn't a villain, despite always going out of his way to help children in need. With a single slash, Savannah cut the ropes binding the student and the girl, telling them to thank the villain who kept them alive. Freed and confused, they asked why Shiro had released them so suddenly, while the fox healer suggested everyone calm down before talking further. Savannah ordered her subordinates to find the newcomers a house and treat them as honored guests, while Shiro quietly checked on the sleeping girl. She warned the healer never to turn the child back into a slave, insisting the girl be brought along to the same house. Later, Shiro, the student, and Savannah shared a bathhouse together, marveling that they never imagined showering in a world like this one. The student noted how much Shiro seemed to know beyond his field, and Shiro compared the setup to the ancient hip baths of Greece. Savannah praised his cleverness for using silvervine powder as a bargaining tool, though Shiro admitted honestly it had only been a gamble. He explained keeping the slave girl there would speed her recovery, and the group soon became honored guests and business partners in town. Outside, cheerful noise rose through the village as the three stood refreshed in fresh robes, wondering together what all the commotion meant. Shiro answered the knock at the door, insisting they already had permission from the chief to stay there. A stampede of beastmen women suddenly surrounded the house, leaving Shiro stunned while the girl and students stared in shock. The women showered him with praise, calling strong males like him wonderful, as Chapter 2 officially began beside their overwhelmed reactions. Worried such numbers could spell trouble if they turned hostile, Shiro realized they weren't acting like enemies after all. The beastmen women pressed closer, begging Shiro to mate with them immediately, until a fierce warrior named Misa forced them back with her blade. Mia blocked the doorway with her weapon, warning everyone not to go further, revealing she had been assigned as Shiro's bodyguard. She explained that Savannah sent her to protect him, since winning the arena made him the desired target of beastmen mates. Mia scolded the women to go home, while another beastman girl mocked how pathetic Mia looked after losing to Shiro herself. Furious, Mia snapped that she would kill anyone who mocked her, though the girl teased that Mia's flushed face said otherwise. Ayatsuji, the student, apologized for the rudeness, while the girl thanked Mia sincerely for stepping in to protect them all. Mia insisted she only worried about her sensei, not Shiro, even as Ayatsuji noted how gentlemanly Shiro had suddenly become. Alone with her thoughts, Mia questioned whether her attraction came purely from beastmen instinct favoring strong males, or something else entirely. She admitted quietly that this bodyguard duty seemed to work out fine for him too, given everything happening around them. Mia noted that losing her warrior status suddenly would make people think she was being punished for her arena defeat. She called Shiro a bastard who seemed to know everything, while he added that her chief was surprisingly considerate despite appearances. Savannah reappeared unexpectedly, warning Shiro that reading too deeply into her beastman's intentions might cost him his life eventually, impressed that Savannah could conceal her presence so well. Shiro listened as she said she wanted to pick his brain now. Savannah told everyone to sit, gathering Shiro, Ayatsuji, the girl, and Mia together to discuss their next move forward. She asked how long it would take to cultivate silver vine on a large scale using proper agricultural methods. Shiro calculated that under similar seasonal conditions, planting from November to April and harvesting by September would take nearly a year. Savannah declared the current pace too slow, insisting they'd have to make do with whatever the fields could provide. She asked if Shiro knew any way to accelerate plant growth, admitting she disliked being kept waiting for results. Shiro revealed they already used an alternative substance, though its quality remained far worse compared to genuine silver vine. He asked whether Savannah had noticed the giant ant corpses being sold openly throughout the city on their way here. Shiro explained the ants likely produced a substance resembling silver vine, much like Argentine ants releasing similar defensive chemicals. He described their neighboring nation, Antinos, ruled entirely by insect creatures the beastmen bitterly called insect bastards. Shiro identified the substance as iridomyrmecin, a chemical the ants stored internally and unleashed violently as a weapon. Savannah explained beastmen were naturally weak to that scent, easily overcome whenever they attempted to fight the ants directly. Despite the danger, hunters still captured ants occasionally, since the extracted drug traded at remarkably high prices among buyers. Savannah pressed Shiro to think of a way to defeat the ants, declaring the situation had changed enough to demand war. Her expression darkened as she vowed to kill every ant and seize their drugs to sell across beastman nations. Ayatsuji promised to strengthen the army for battle, while Savannah turned toward Shiro, ready to rely on his strange knowledge. Dr. Shiro's mouth formed into a smile as his quiet declaration shattered the air. This was war. The leadership assembled, gaze focused with resolve. Plans formed quickly: destroy the ants, seize their resources, keep nothing behind. A warrior struck a weapon into the earth, insisting intelligence. The following focus required to be found. A map disclosed a close ant nest. It was near, open, and weak. Lacking hesitation, the girl volunteered to survey nearby alone. Dr. Shiro expressed a bold plan: capture the ants living, study them, and check if Earth science applied here. The leaders paused, but his reasoning won. If they understood the foe's features, stronger weapons could be created. Reconnaissance would be done with strength, using beastmen to capture the nest. Known person challenged his harshness. Shiro gave above a magical orb to coordinate the assault. With a strained grin, Shiro admitted it was all an act, he not to intended cruelty. Dr. Shiro said with calm certainty, true humanness lies in intelligence and compassion, not outward form. He suggested that if ants shared such traits, they too merited to be treated as peers. His remarks impressed his allies, who misread his strategy for compassion. He solely required Fiona shyly disclosed her title and asked to accompany him on the journey. Shiro softly refused, asking her to recover and return safely to her parents. She pleaded never to be departed behind. Her family were captives, plus she feared the beastmen. To defend her, they agreed to create a mystery weapon against the ants. He unveiled his plan: a capsaicin-based insect deterrent spray, using chilies and ethanol. The mist would repel bugs, offering an edge in fight lacking bloodshed. However, the warrior rejected it, thinking only physical strength really mattered. Shiro's group challenged the mist's usefulness. So he acknowledged the warrior's objection had value. Once she departed, Shiro disclosed his actual objective. The deterrent was a diversion strategy. What he really intended to make was insecticide a deadly weapon. His group reacted alongside surprise as the word sank in. This was past simple protection. The man clarified that flowers containing natural toxins. For insects also a trace could mean demise. Thou hesitant. One pupil objected to killing that insects. Shiro consented. Deadly strength would be a last resort. Still, he understood the hazard. If beastmen obtained the pesticide, the conflict could escalate into slaughter. To prevent that, he demanded solely humans could possess it and only use it when really threatened. Alongside haste, Shiro rallied the party to the lab to begin production. Within, they found vast stores of dried chrysanthemum flowers essential for that formula. To preserve the heat-delicate pyrethrin, the group crushed flowers by palm, despite having a mixer. Following soaking in ethanol, that pyrethrin was harvested. To refine that, they employed one rotary evaporator. Combining crop materials with metal containers, they completed their first batch of pesticide mist. A separate supply of deterrent was created for that beastman. Though ethanol was in short supply, exhausted but successful, the group wrapped up preparations and readied to report away to Savannah. Following the report to Savannah, Shiro was called Chief of the Recon Strength. Mia grew military commander quite clearly. The darkness prior to departure, Mia promised to erase the shame of her past failure and stand out. She recalled that humiliating instant vividly, a painful personal beat that still burned in her mind. Restless, Mia stood out of bed, drawing Shiro's concern as he asked her to rest. Gripping her sword, Shiro too remembered the same day, the ache still echoing through his form. Overloaded and shaking, Mia confronted Shiro, insisting he take responsibility for stirring her urges. Shiro sighed, noticing the woman's condition. To avoid distraction throughout fight, he unwillingly responded to her needs. While the woman's emotions spiraled, Shiro thought, he had caused that shift, yet sensed no guilt. Possessed that realm dulled his ethics. Different girls silently noticed, her thoughts drawn to Shiro as well. Later, Mia stood beneath the bath, her mind lingering on the person who unsettled her so deeply. Suspicious of Shiro's actual intentions, the beastman plotted silently, previously forming ways to confront him. While that moon stood, tension thickened. Both sides concealed reasons, and the conflict was near. A cautious step lands close to the cliff's advantage, showing the end of a long journey. Shiro plus his party of companions arrive at their destination, wrapped in cloaks, weary yet alert. They stare in awe at the tall stone formations, the doorway to an unknown realm. Shiro identifies it as the ant colony of Antinos, mapping a tranquil approach, but Mia charges nearby. With no option, the party rushes after her, ready for whatever confrontation awaits within. Emerging from the cliffs, dim creatures created their nearness known. Lacking hesitation, she prepared to attack, but abrupt voice called out. Shiro seemed asking restraint before any fluid was shed. Positioning himself in front of her, he steadily demanded they try diplomacy initially. Thou hesitant, she offered in, lowering her armament with a sigh and a skeptical look. his party behind him, declaring with certainty that they did not come to combat, but to seek peace. The armored ant warriors remained tall, saying their intention to assess the possibility of tranquil relations. In reply, Shiro gave in command to retrieve a specific cart, showing the start of a planned exchange. Multiple big barrels were presented, filled to the brim with a dim. Shiro clarified its purpose and suited source of nutrients for the ant people, made from refined crop sugars and amino acids. Curious yet cautious, the ant warriors examined the barrels closely, uncertain of the gift's purpose but visibly intrigued. Shiro thought on bug conduct, noting how aphids use nectar to manipulate ants into cooperation. One of the women, surprised by his foresight, admired how he also considered diplomacy while people prepared for battle. Abruptly, one of that ant warriors started to speak in their own language. Shiro rapidly recognized the communication ants vibrated their forms to create sound. Extending his palm calmly, Shiro presented the person gesture of friendship, a handshake bridging species through understanding rather than fear. Shiro extended his palm, and the ant warrior agreed too, sealing a temporary bond of mutual understanding with a solid handshake. Delight burst among the party. His pupils shouted, amazed via the successful diplomacy. A looming figure seemed condemning the handshake as a betrayal and alliance alongside the foe. Shiro and the warrior chief turned, startled by the voice's intensity and abrupt danger. The figure proposed dim mana to the warriors, commanding them to turn against the outsiders and destroy them all. Abrupt surge of dim energy surged through the ant warriors, distorting their expression into something intense. Their gaze gleamed with an ominous bright, signaling an unnatural change that alarmed the party. From the shadows, the transformed troops came ahead, unified and menacing in their new state. Shiro, realizing the hazard, ordered a tactical retreat while deploying the insect deterrent to wait pursuit. Watching the disorder unfold, the mysterious figure grinned harshly, pleased by the simplicity of choosing violence. Steady yet determined, the girl stepped forward and confronted the strongest warrior to a one-on-one fight. With speed and precision, she launched the first attack, clashing straight with the towering ant trooper. Both combatants shared blows fiercely, their force appearing evenly matched as tension grew. One assault hit her guard, unleashing a surprising burst that momentarily stunned her senses. She recognized the aroma matched Shiro's warning and ant substance defense emitted under stress. Mia was momentarily amazed, but Shiro tossed her cat leaf powder, aiming to revive her with its mild stimulant impact. Regaining her composure, she charged forward with renewed strength, forcing the enemy away with a powerful hit. While the people observed in confusion, Mia casually stepped off, holding a metal canister. Shock spread as they recognized she'd used pesticide, not deterrent, prompting Shiro to question her recklessness. With a sly smile, Mia only proposed a vague reply, keeping her true intent hidden. Mia remained confidently, holding one unknown bottle. Her superior challenged her, stunned by her possession of the pesticide. With a dark smile, Mia chased into fleeing enemies. Her command above the substance created them scatter in panic. In an abrupt burst of tension, she hit her comrade hard, shocking those close. That confrontation escalated quite clearly. Her use of that dust, a last resort, was challenged. Her chief scolded her harshly, reminding her that became in charge. Kneeling, she muttered a soft reply as a little container dropped from her sleeve. His attention shifted to that container on that earth. Suspicion filled his thoughts, but he chose to focus on the additional instant danger. Jointly, they noticed that aftermath. That remaining ant males had escaped, vanishing above the rocky ridges. He studied their odd formation, understanding the insects had abandoned coordination unlike their usual conduct. Curiously, all possessed avoided one region clearly. That anomaly hinted at object concealed and possibly risky. The party arrived at an enormous cave doorway, standing in silence as the leader confirmed the location. Within, the building stretched farther than expected. Under the surface, they uncovered concealed anthills cleverly disguised as a cavern system. Realization dawned as they theorized the nearness of object useful the ants were guarding. Farther in, they encountered a ruler-like insect lady, flanked by loyal ant warriors. With a assured look, she recognized their arrival and praised their persistence. The party recognized the creature before them as the ant ruler, though her presence near the border puzzled them. Steadily, she halted her watchmen and acknowledged the humans' unfamiliar weapons with interest. Strangely, her remarks reached their minds lacking sound, revealing a strange telepathic ability. She started recounting an old tale of an unknown lady who once visited their land. That lady approved them mana, transforming queens toward humanoid forms for interspecies communication. A substance secretion, laced with dopamine, had altered the ants' conduct, making them aggressive and obedient like mercenaries. Despite the apology, she agreed to responsibility for the loss of comrades, saying that conflict was inevitable under the Lady in White's influence. The ruler disclosed her tragic previous used for reproduction and discarded by outsiders. She no more valued her life, understanding her future as a manipulated ruler. Yet people encouraged her not to surrender, reminding her that life meant possibility. The ruler softly repeated the title Shiro, shifted by the words of hope she had just heard. Unexpectedly, she proposed herself to him, asking if he would take her along as a captive, lacking hesitation or shame. The woman's previous surfaced clearly. She remembered the trauma of her mother, mistreated by their own gentle and discarded like waste. Recollections of her mother cradling broken eggs filled her alongside grief. That tribe had reduced her mother to breeding stock, employing plus abandoning her mercilessly. Time later, the small ruler witnessed her mother's lifeless body discarded near the anthill, unable to intervene. Followed by that memory, she thought becoming one man's captive might offer a safer fate than repeating her mother's end. To her, choosing servitude was a strategy for survival in a realm where the frail served the powerful. She agreed to the offer to be brought along. Surprising the people, thankful, she proposed her thanks as the party prepared to leave with her. Shiro created it plain he had no desire to use the ruler for personal pleasure. Rather, he noticed strategic worth. By extracting a substance that affected beastmen, they could destabilize foe lands via controlled distribution. He also considered causing a secret ant army underground, ready for use against any coming threats. Meantime, his companions joked about his odd luck attracting strange allies. With the fight won, he readied to report away to Savannah. Shiro reported that the nectar they produced could act as a bargaining tool, suggesting tranquil commerce to reduce casualties. Savannah approved that suggestion and informed him to go back at his own pace. One urgent call interrupted her. Someone possessed news toward deliver. The report verified the base's limited access, but operations stayed steady under her direction. Within staff charged to reorganize, preparing everything prior to the deadline arrived. The man inquired the ruler for her title. She replied Sura, and he announced her his captive. Lacking hesitation, he readied a syringe, stating that he would use her form for experiments. Sura, undisturbed, gave him filled approval to do whatever he desired. With Sura and her ant troops, he came back to the Beastmen settlement and reported on nectar production. He marveled at how rapidly the insects cleared space under the lab. Within the hollowed-out space under the lab, he saw the perfect opportunity to shelter the insects and perform his experiments discreetly. Although he had no worthy intentions, he prepared the syringe, noting her worth and watching her provocative response. Explaining the compound's results, he injected her alongside a dopamine suppressant derived from snake root. The formula overloaded her mind, triggering a pleasure she hadn't sensed in ages. Abruptly, distant cries rang, prompting her to search for the child's tone. From that darkness, that sound of weeping rang. A small ant girl stood solo, tears streaming into her face. Approaching cautiously, Sura stared in amazement, noticing the child as a reflection of her own younger self. The child wept out for her mother, frightened of the coming and overloaded by grief. Softly, Sura embraced her, giving warmth in place of the mother she could not go back. Gripped tightly, the child whispered thanks, finding comfort in the limbs she now named mother. Shiro inquired the way she sensed. Though hesitant, Sura acknowledged the woman didn't feel bad near all. She thought inwardly, realizing the burden of her mother's demise had silently lessened. Meantime, the people studied how a spirit manipulated brain chemistry, mimicking the results of dopamine. Shiro concluded that regular doses of reserpine might break that sway via restoring balance. Thankful, Sura hugged him tightly, as he awkwardly tried to fight the affection. Sura noticed Shiro closely, sensing his unspoken yearning for someone mild plus motherly. Her intuition proved right. His childhood had been harsh, and he hadn't recognized genuine ease. Rather of being that healer, Shiro discovered himself opening up as if receiving therapy. Embarrassed by her boldness, he named her an actual ruler, catching her off guard. Overloaded, Sura trembled as an unfamiliar, powerful feeling surged through her form. Overcome by unknown feeling, Sura silently asked Shiro if he could hold her. Her form trembled as strong sensations flooded her mind, making her lose command. Shiro paused, then gradually removed his coat, regarding it as part of her treatment. Sura, flushed plus breathless, responded to the instant, alongside uninhibited honesty. As they dragged closer, tension reached its peak, guided via faith, vulnerability, and rising heat between them. Motion strengthened, and Shiro pressed ahead with controlled determination. Sura lay yet, her gaze wide, overloaded by the sensations rushing through her. Shiro thought on how this came to be, suspecting beyond influence had altered her conduct. He theorized that alongside her pheromones, zero more restrained, a natural flood of emotions surfaced. Sura, no longer queenly, expressed relief in simply feeling like a usual lady anew. In the soft aftermath, Sura lay beside Shiro, their breaths steadying beneath the dim cavern bright. Tears welled in her gaze as she made a plea from the spirit to defeat the lady in white, avenge her mother, for the first period. She expressed her true desire lacking hesitation or dread. Shiro heard, warning her of the consequences, but she stood solid despite the dangers, also knowing sacrifice may be required. Shura agreed to the cost liberty meant more than safety. Solo alongside his thoughts, Shiro thought on Sura's compassion. Despite her long-remaining grief, she had not stopped caring for her people. Standing before a government building, he reconsidered his view of the realm. Maybe not everyone here was pushed by might. His brief harmony was interrupted when pupils charged in with urgent news. They reported that beast folk became preparing to invade Antinos, catching Shiro off surprise. The circumstance worsened and pesticide was used. Stunned, Shiro challenged how such escalation was also possible. A girl quietly stepped forward from the shadows, her wide, unblinking gaze fixed nearby. A report arrives that the beast people are preparing to invade Antinos, armed with expertise of pesticide and alarming escalation. Shiro plus his group suspect one betrayal. He quietly acknowledges the leak while hiding his response from the people. A lady watches Shiro, sensing he previously knows the traitor's identity, but chooses to stay quiet. She moves ahead, steadily admitting she gave the beast folk the insecticide information. Her reasoning reveals purpose. She shared expertise to aid, not to destroy. Pushed by devotion, she confesses she not to cared for peace. Only Shiro's safety counted to her. Tears fall while she laments his constant self-sacrifice, fearing how often he dangers his existence. To defend him, she reveals she headed harder, giving the beast folk the full recipe for insecticide. As she waits for decision, Shiro quietly moves away, offering no rebuke. He smiles softly, incapable to blame the pupil he treasures most. Shiro declares his purpose to meet with Savannah, aiming to dissuade her from misusing research. The people are departed amazed. He offers no condemnation despite the destruction she enabled. In that beast people's audience chamber, Savannah awaits him alongside an unreadable expression. She greets him sarcastically, sensing the weight of his fury behind his quiet. Causing his tone, Shiro demands she immediately halt using insecticide on Antinos. Savannah resists Shiro's demand, ridiculing his plea toward halt that invasion. Despite one surprise's cautioning, with a chilling smile, she reminds him that the battlefield is previously stained with fluid. Twisting the discussion, she proposes Shiro lead the suppression strength himself, an proposal that shocks him to the core. He recoils at the suggestion, strongly rejecting the concept, yet Savannah persists. She leans in near, tone low and dangerous, preparing to press him with a farther, more personal question. With a cold smile, Savannah leans in and questions whether Shiro really thought everything would unfold according to his expectations. The woman's remarks pierce him clearly. His wide-gazed stare reveals that weight of her accusation and the fact in it. He had doubted the leak all along yet chose not to performance. Savannah accuses him of arrogance, claiming he glanced into on beast folk and ants alike, valuing person life above all. Her tone softens, but her remarks sting in the end. They're no distinct. Savannah's words linger as she praises Shiro's response, revealing her amusement and warped admiration before he moves away in silence. Left solo, Shiro kneels in the empty chamber, overloaded by doubt and uncertainty about what option remains to him. As realization dawns, his inner tone acknowledges that inevitable turn from events. The ruler of the insects urges Shiro to performance, reminding him that resistance will demand great sacrifice. She expresses optimism that he'll serve as a general not for conflict. The ant ruler offers her filled backing, promising crucial intel about Antinos' geography to give Shiro an edge. Hearing this, Shiro laughs darkly, marveling that also an ant ruler has placed faith in him. With a assured grin, he resolves to attack at the enemy's core and bring the war to a decisive end. But his look hardens, his transformation shocks also his companions. Quietly, that ruler reflects, Shiro's spirit body gentle, but war demands he bury it. The ruler softly acknowledges Shiro's burdens, recognizing the immense pressure he has endured since arriving in this realm. Her faith in him is met with soft resolve. Shiro accepts the weight of leaders lacking hesitation. Afterward, in the war chamber, he presents a new invasion route to Savannah, surprising the people with certainty. Savannah doubts him instantly, asking the strategy's feasibility with thinly veiled sarcasm. The route requires bargaining with the dragonfolk, a daring and risky move. A dragonfolk girl minds a disturbance while bathing. making cautiously as an unfamiliar nearness approaches. Savannah agreed to the proposal to lead the Antino suppression unit. Her expression showed by determination. Across from her, the beast-eared lady responded with a knowing smile, clearly expecting her reply all along. Prior to acting forward, Savannah imposed a single condition: each slave in the arena must be set free. The demand was quickly rejected, as the lady argued that losing the arena would cripple their finances. With a burst of fangs, she cautioned Savannah harshly not to overestimate her place. Shiro recognized the worth of force, recognizing the beast folk's tradition of rewarding proven warriors. The lady proposed a compromise: 1/3 of the captives would be freed. For the last portion, she requested payment, claiming the remaining captives were vital for income. Though hesitant about the price, Shiro agreed, believing liberty earned through battle was worth the risk. With a solid posture, he took command, prepared to restructure the invasion with renewed authority. Beastfolk troops reacted with interest and fascination upon meeting their new person commander, intrigued by his reputation. A detailed map of the nest disclosed foe positions, matching perfectly with their earlier terrain data. Shiro suggested a flanking strategy through the wasteland, preventing a costly frontal assault. His suggestion met resistance. That wasteland was recognized as a deadly wasteland. None survived. Despite doubts, Shiro stayed confident, thinking their expertise and captured ants could ensure safe passage. Shiro verified his assurance, citing historical strategies as precedent for daring maneuvers. He referenced T.E. Lawrence's Wasteland campaign, drawing a parallel to their present circumstance. Still, a new concern appeared: the nearness of the formidable dragonfolk beyond the desert. Their region bordered the route, and entering equipped might spark unavoidable conflict. Despite the dangers, Shiro chose to negotiate straight, knowing that the beastfolk and dragonfolk shared a bitter rivalry. Shiro positioned himself as a non-threatening emissary, observing that his person's standing could ease tensions in negotiations. Alongside a mix of skepticism and amusement, the beastman permitted him to proceed, intrigued by his assurance. As walking through the settlement, he pondered the challenges nearby and the lack of research on dragon physiology. Abruptly, laughter dragged his attention to a troubling setting involving mistreatment. Among the ashamed was Mia. Once a respected fighter, now a focus of ridicule and grief. Mia struggled as her tormentor accepted pleasure in overpowering her, ridiculing her former force. Shiro arrived mid-abuse, insisting one explanation from that aggressor's. Recognizing his authority as the Beastfolk force's commander, the women backed into in fear and retreated. Their attitudes shifted instantly, trying to charm him. As he shifted his attention to Mia, he softly held her as she collapsed, blaming him for her hurting through bitter, exhausted remarks. Mia recounted her fall from grace, blaming a previous mistake that guided to her exile into that slums. Desperate and shaking, she pleaded Shiro for the drug, unable to endure her hurting any longer. Alongside little hesitation, he gave her a dose, allowing her to take what she required. She consumed it instantly, seeking a void from her suffering, overloaded by her addiction. Seconds later, she recovered composure, ashamed yet mindful that her downfall was her own doing. Shiro proposed Mia a chance to rebuild her life, asking how she'd respond if a route ahead existed. With a grin, he showed her with a vial, assigning her the job of selling it in town. He outlined the trade strategy: start low, gain traction, then raise prices, giving her a 10% cut. Mia listened, as he reassured her that he solely desired to aid her recover. Tears welled in her gaze while she recognized she had misjudged him all along. Overloaded with feeling, Mia embraced Shiro tightly, expressing her profound gratitude. As she held to him, Shiro secretly plotted, knowing the silver vine dust mixed with ant-derived chemicals would spread fast. He planned to funnel the drug past the elite, moving it into the palms of common soldiers. A sinister smile betrayed his actual purpose, hidden behind kindness and strategy. Little by little, the substance would corrode the force of the beastfolk state from inside. Shiro and his companions followed a route through the woods, guided by a map from the ant ruler, heading toward the Dragonkin nation. Along the way, they discovered a small Dragonkin young woman fell beside the trail, visibly injured. Despite worries of a feasible trap, Shiro chose to aid her, unwilling to abandon a wounded child. Using ointment he crafted from healing plants, Shiro treated her injured limb. Thankful, the girl held to Shiro, calling him her savior as he awkwardly asked her to rest. Shiro listened as the Dragonkin girl praised his kindness yet hinted at a farther sorrow inside him. Cheerfully, she proposed to guide the party toward the Dragonkin nation and set off with eager moves. Her fast recovery raised suspicion, particularly given how showing her clothing seemed to the people. Despite doubts that party came her, she led with assurance, keeping her actual intentions concealed. As their destination neared, she grinned solo, revealing a need to go back for an unknown purpose. Shiro and his party arrived at the Dragonkin state, marveling at its unique and advanced society. The capital bustled with activity as a grand dragon god festival took location, celebrating the coming tempest season. Though confused via the mention of a dragon tempest, they were encouraged to simply enjoy the view. Their travel companion stirred awkward queries among the party, but tensions eased rapidly. Soon following, they readied to ride an enormous wyvern, the region's primary mode of transport. Riding high on a wyvern, Shiro and his party valued the vast sky, though some held nervously to the beast. Their flight finished at that imposing gates of the Dragon Emperor's palace. Inside, the Dragon Emperor awaited, seated in dignified silence as leader of the Dragonfolk state. Shiro presented himself and requested permission to cross the molten desert, causing the Emperor's curiosity. He clarified the looming danger from Antinos, ruled by a mysterious lady in white, prompting urgent concern. Shiro appealed to the Dragon Emperor, asking to set away previous tensions and shape a united front. To his frustration, the Emperor disclosed that the Dragonfolk had previously allied with Antinos. As custom dictated, Princess Ryuri was expected to marry throughout that Dragon God festival. The Emperor declared her bride would be none other than the Empress of Antinos, the Lady in Pale. Despite differences within race or gender, Dragonkin marriages sealed political bonds, making that union one binding alliance. Shiro realized the hazard nearby. If the Dragonfolk joined Antinos, the Beastfolk state wouldn't survive. He warned the Emperor about the Lady in Pale's manipulative methods, insisting she couldn't be trusted. To Shiro's surprise, that Imperial Princess was disclosed her title was Ryuri. Recognition dawned in clear terms. She was the girl they had assisted previously on the path. Laughing, Ryuri acknowledged to deceiving them, brushing that off as one harmless prank. Although small, Ryuri's might as princess was sincere and carried significant weight in the court. Her spirit, linked to the dragon god, approved her prophetic vision into people's emotions and futures. Shiro rejected the reverence towards her revelations, shouting it improper and insisting they return home. Abruptly, he sensed different nearness. One figure had quietly approached, lacking him noticing. Recognizing her tone from the nest, Shiro realized the lady before him was the Empress of Antinos. The mysterious figure stepped forward, revealing herself as the feared leader known as the Lady in Pale. Shiro recognized the Lady in Pale as the one orchestrating the turmoil across Antinos. In the royal court, she announced Princess Ryuri had pledged herself to her, aiming to unite Antinos alongside the Dragonfolk state. Silently, she had previously ensured her selection in the upcoming marriage ceremony, set to occur inside a week. She disappeared mid-discussion, leaving uncertainty behind and ridiculing the Beastfolk delegation. Despite that disruption, the elder extended courtesy to Shiro, masking his annoyance alongside diplomatic grace. Acknowledging Shiro's person source, the mage expressed surprise that the Beastfolk agreed to him as their commander. Lacking pause, a cheerful girl held to him, insisting on giving him a tour despite his subtle resistance. When asked about her posture on a certain lady, she affirmed her faith and willingness, despite the intimidating aura. Hearing that, Shiro offered a resigned nod, accepting the result with little visible feeling. Meantime, his companions debated their next attack, split between going back or staying hopeful for a turnaround. Shiro chose to remain as more, hinting at a hidden advantage they hadn't yet played. The party headed towards the nearby town, setting their first destination beyond the palace gates. Locals assembled near Princess Ryuri, warmly welcoming her, while she struggled to keep the visitors in focus. A native proposed offering the visitors a rare delicacy, piquing Shiro's interest with its vague name. Eager, Ryuri led them to a street meal stall, keen to share the unfamiliar dish. The group's interest shifted to concern as they examined the strange brown eggs showed at the stall. With a proud grin, Princess Ryuri disclosed that the eggs were her own, making instant tension. Everyone froze in surprise, struggling to process which they had just listened to. Different Dragonkin girl clarified that this practice was usual among their kind, insisting it wasn't strange. Unfazed, Ryuri eagerly proposed one from her eggs, encouraging Shiro to take a bite. Everyone paused, uneasy about the concept of consuming eggs from a humanoid species, despite being informed they were unfertilized. Closed children scoffed at the party's response, unimpressed and dismissive of the humans' discomfort. Ryuri admitted that guests always responded this way, her tone soft as someone swiped an egg from her palm. Lacking cautioning, Shiro bit into one, surprising everyone, including Ryuri herself clearly. Her spirit raced as she observed him eat, stunned by his surprising acceptance. Shiro noticed the flavor, steadily commenting on how the spices seeped via the shell's cracks. He clarified that adapting to native cuisine was the essential part of proper fieldwork etiquette. His assurance encouraged the people, causing them to try the eggs despite earlier hesitation. Seeing their reactions, Ryuri grinned softly, silently pleased by their acceptance. Also, the native children welcomed Shiro warmly, regarding him as one of their own. While being brought by a native child, Shiro realized the egg tasting had been a cultural check. Ryuri led the party to a restricted site past the city's ancient ruins sealed off by royal decree to defend their legacy. They entered silently, navigating narrow paths and also scaling a plant to access the ruins from above. Upon reaching the top, a breathtaking view of the former dynasty's structures spread prior to them beneath the vast sky. Shifted by the view, Shiro finally understood the Dragonkin's honor. In the far remained Dragon God Peak, its peak shrouded in legend. That dragon god, resting for decades at a period, could occasionally release wyverns that wreaked havoc throughout the region. That resulting storms, recognized as dragon storms, carried destruction like tornadoes. Shiro's group compared them to locusts, though the devastation they caused was distant more fearsome. Ryuri acknowledged her choice to align with Antinos was out of necessity. Her folk couldn't endure both war and dragon storms. With disdain in her tone, the lady in pale rejected the cultural offering. Harshly, she crushed the egg under her fingers, declaring she had no curiosity in Dragonkin traditions and could destroy them at will. The rejection left Ryuri quiet, struggling to hold away her emotions as she shifted away. Overloaded by the weight of her situation, she broke into, declaring her true feelings. She never wanted to marry that woman. Understanding the woman's suffering, Shiro softly embraced her. Unknown tone rang in the darkness, reaching into Ryuri's mind. The lady in pale closed in, offering twisted comfort as she manipulated Ryuri's fragile emotions, tightening her command. Abruptly, a surge of energy erupted around Ryuri as the party yelled in alarm. Shiro shifted towards the mountain, gaze widening as black wyverns burst from its peak under stormy skies. Realization hit Ryuri was being exploited as a catalyst. Her anguish used to strengthen the dragon god to unleash a force of wyverns. Shiro glanced up in alarm as wyverns spiraled overhead, noticing the signs of an approaching dragon tempest.
An enormous dragon surged from that tempest, its wings splitting the blizzard as it descended upon the frozen terrain. The group stood frozen, a void unworkable. One of them came ahead, hurling a strange block towards the beast. The dragon recoiled, puzzled as a mist burst near it. That creature writhed yet didn't fall clearly. That retreated, uninjured clearly. Onlookers recognized the substance wasn't a toxin. It was something else entirely. As spirit energy flared, that young woman resisted its strength. Tears streamed into her expression as she pleaded them to run. The man grabbed the woman's, pulling the woman's along. Jointly, the party charged into the ruins for shelter. From afar, that storm's force waned, and the production of wyverns ceased. It was plain this was no more a filled-scale dragon storm. Yet, a single figure raised her palm, commanding a crowd of wyverns with sheer willpower. Their quantities solo threatened to overwhelm the defenders. Within that ruin, stone cracked plus rumbled. Dust rained into as the walls shook beneath pressure. Despite its old design, the building revealed signs of collapse. That was built for dragon storms, yet never a second onslaught. Under them, one concealed panel shifted. A forgotten underground shelter disclosed a route to life. Inside the underground shelter, the party huddled tightly as the pounding overhead grew louder. That wyvern shrieked, relentless within the group's assault. Fatigue overtook the woman's quite clearly. Slumped and wheezing, she rested against the man, her force almost gone from the fight. A small girl lay in pain, her form overloaded. The other feared that if matters proceeded, she would be drained until demise. In quiet, that person embraced her. His nearness proposed warmth and protection, also in the dark. Then that earth shook. Overhead them, the citadel collapsed beneath a weight of destruction. Among shattered ground and dragon remains, the pale-robed woman turned away, satisfied. She thought the fight was above, but from beneath the rubble, Shiro and the people appeared, weary but living. That shelter possessed rescued them. In soft reflection, the party recognized their survival was only thanks to the hidden underground chamber. Opposing the horned young woman, Shiro said plainly, the lady who summoned the dragons had not to intended to defend their nation. He cautioned her harder destruction became inevitable. Unless they acted, both their lives plus homeland could fall following. The horned girl grinned alongside soft resolve. Her choice was last she would marry the tyrant and end her life to prevent harder suffering. Shiro and the people remained amazed. The weight of her remarks sank in, quieting the chamber. She thought her sacrifice could ensure harmony, might could transfer, and her tormentor would lose command. Yet Shiro declined to accept that route. Resolved, he vowed to do whatever it took to rescue her. Also, if it meant defying fate. The woman's expression softened quite clearly. For an instant, optimism came back. The woman teased him, shouting him one fairy tale prince. Plus, for previously, she permitted herself to believe in that magic. Shiro's expression stayed steady, but within, his mind raced. He saw via her cheerful demeanor, noticing it as a mask hiding profound anxiety. Approaching Ayatsuji, the man inquired for one favor. Her usual flirtatious tone came back while she vowed she'd do anything for him. Lacking hesitation, Shiro made his appeal strange, blunt, and completely surprising. Ayatsuji froze in clear terms. Her expression burned red as the surprise overloaded her. Uncertainty and embarrassment burst in her surprised scream. Leaning within, Shiro rapidly clarified clearly. That wasn't for anything perverse, he required it for a critical part of his strategy. Embarrassed, she struggled to process that appeal, her thoughts derailed by his proximity. Ayatsuji, now steady and composed, consented to aid. With Fiona in tow, she announced she would proudly donate the sample Shiro required, fully trusting his decision. The women shuffled off behind the rocks, embarrassed yet determined. One cautioned the people not to peek, while the boys stood awkwardly, red-faced and quiet. Alongside cheeks flushed, the two women cautiously filled their cups. It was uncomfortable and odd, yet they endured it for the journey. Shiro accepted the collected samples, lacking pause, as he prepped that following ingredient, a polymer adsorption resin. His focus not to wavered. Looking to the skies, Shiro disclosed the following phase of his strategy, bribing wyvern riders. Whatever that accepted, he'd see it via. 7 days passed clearly. At that imperial palace's courtyard, the stage was set for a grand wedding ceremony, attended by nobles and troops alike. Princess Ryuri came ahead in ceremonial attire, clutching one bouquet. Her gaze betrayed no feeling, yet her nearness commanded the crowd's silence. From the far, an observer verified her life. Her resilience as dragonfolk had permitted her to endure what people might not. The pale-robed figure observed with chilly satisfaction. Keeping Ryuri living had been a calculated move. People, deemed weaker, had been discarded, lacking remorse. Yet just as her satisfaction calmed, one shadow approached from behind. Steps rang purposefully, carrying the weight of a reckoning long readied. That pale-robed figure froze in amazement. Prior to her stood Shiro, living, defiant, and completely surprising. Seated beside Princess Ryuri, Shiro's nearness instantly dragged attention. A elevated priest challenged why he occupied the chair meant for royal suitors. Steadily, Shiro clarified clearly. According to their customs, any person of high cultural remaining could join the marriage ceremony, despite of race. He announced his position, lacking hesitation. As commander of that beast people military, he additional than met the qualifications. Opposing the throne, Shiro boldly declared his purpose to marry Princess Ryuri. Gasps came quite clearly. Also, Ryuri herself was departed amazed.
Prior to the assembled court, a bold declaration stuns the room. Shiro proclaims his purpose to marry Princess Ryuri. The crowd reacts with surprise, and Ryuri, taken off guard, tries to hide her embarrassed expression. One elder dismisses that outburst, asking the ceremony to proceed. The ally selection had been secretly arranged, hidden from open expertise for political reasons. Ryuri stands mixed quite clearly. She values Shiro's dedication but feels obligation driven to different. Abruptly, the woman begins to feel unwell. Breathing heavily, the woman trembles quite clearly. In the background, Shiro watches, observing his plan is assuming impact. He had secretly laced her meals with hormones, collected from monster women, convincing a servant it was essential to save her. Assured in his plan, had doused himself with synthesized mating pheromones harvested from natural chemicals. Those mimicked those employed by reptiles throughout breeding seasons. He thought the princess wouldn't be able to fight her instincts, pushed by the biological cues he had carefully orchestrated. As he remained yet, Ryuri collapsed into his limbs. The bystanders observed quietly, stunned by her abrupt action. Overcome via warmth and feeling, Ryuri struggled alongside her thoughts. A part of her desired to surrender fully to Shiro's nearness. Shiro softly comforted her, offering to move her burdens alone, reinforcing his command with calm assurance. With trembling palms and tear-filled gaze, Ryuri collapsed into Shiro's limbs, begging him to accept her as his bride. That gathering gasped in amazement. Whispers rippled throughout that hall. No one expected the princess to choose a person, enraged. The other contender disclosed her actual aims. She abandoned all control and promised to unleash a dragon tempest that would annihilate the kingdom. Clutching Shiro, Ryuri pleaded desperately for him to defend that realm from that looming catastrophe. Lacking pause, Shiro responded with intense determination, assuring her that she could count on him to take charge of the crisis. As energy surged near her, the dragon lady mocked Shiro's helplessness, declaring that both he and the state would be erased. the summoned dragon tempest exploded into reality, engulfing the territory in a brutal tempest of wind and lightning. Disorder spread rapidly clearly. With Ryuri unresponsive, her magic restraint vanished, allowing the full force of the storm to spiral out of command. Citizens freaked, unable to avoid in period. Among the debris, Shiro tightened his grip near Ryuri, gaze burning with resolve. With a commanding cry, he unleashed his countermeasure, predicting it precisely as the tempest threatened to consume them all. As the signal blazed throughout the heavens, a squad of wyvern riders leapt into move. Answering the call, they soared ahead with intense determination, ready to fulfill their journey. Behind Shiro, one formation of dragons filled that heavens. The beasts surged ahead, forming a protective barrier near him, and the unresponsive princess, warding off the chaos. Onlookers identified that riders instantly. Though their arrival carried hope, doubt spread there were too some to stand against the magnitude of the dragon tempest. Lacking hesitation, Shiro offered the command. The Krezel substance, part of his countermeasure, required to be deployed instantly. A booming clank rang via the air as special nozzles on the dragon gear activated, elevated overhead the battlefield. The wyvern riders pushed through the brutal winds. Debris and dark energy swirled through the air as they battled to maintain command against the raging storm. That dragons roared as they sprayed a pale mist throughout the skies. Gradually, that dragon tempest started shifting direction. Shiro calmly clarified the substance behind the defense Krezel, a natural reptile deterrent derived from castor oil. Its dispersal was that key to diverting that tempest. The man had studied that wyvern science, watching their unique respiration system, which separated inhaling from exhaling using air sacs, gave him the critical detail required. With that expertise, he engineered a weapon that used the wyvern's powerful breaths to mist Krezel efficiently. Might drained from the horned woman's form as she realized she could no longer command the dragon storm. Dim memories surged via her thoughts. She had entrusted much of her mana to Different, thinking it would grant her authority. Voices from that kingdom's defenders stood in fury. Shiro steadily approached, retrieving a weapon from her grasp as she struggled to fight. The woman's panic grew quite clearly. In a burst, a small demon girl hit from behind. That horned lady gasped, her form pierced and weakened, falling to her knees. As she faded into unconsciousness, thoughts of her late might and untapped mana filled her mind, unable to undo her beat. Reflecting on the aftermath, the elder faulted himself for overlooking his daughter's quiet efforts to defend the realm. Acknowledging Shiro's heroism, that elder formally proposed him Princess Ryuri's palm in marriage. Citizens assembled near, offering praise, admiration, and also outlandish requests. While the elder proposed Shiro take several wives and approved him the title of Archduke, Shiro declined. Later that darkness, Ryuri waited timidly in her chamber, her spirit pounding. Dressed in ceremonial attire, she asked Shiro to begin their fresh life jointly. Ryuri gazed near Shiro alongside flushed cheeks, the woman's expression soft, now driven by marriage. She entirely agreed to her role beside him. Opposing Shiro, the woman lowered her surprise. Nervous, but determined, she entrusted herself to him, prepared to begin their existence as husband and wife. Shiro sat prior to a dragonfolk girl who clarified their custom of spending the first night jointly after marriage. Beyond, one of Shiro's companions grew anxious, understanding which was happening behind the curtains. Alarmed, he charged to intervene, declaring he'd halt the act also at great cost. Yet the steady lady beside him reassured him it was just for show. Within, Shiro stood yet, opposing the dragon girl. That mood shifted quite clearly. He glanced at her not as royalty, yet as someone weak and sincere. Softly embracing her, Shiro disclosed his true purpose. He had married her not for obligation, yet to defend her. Her selflessness told him of his late sibling. As Shiro shifted to keep, the dragon girl pulled him away. The woman's tone softened, shouting him gentle. But object in her gaze hinted at additional. The woman's breathing grew heavy quite clearly. Despite the man's pause, the woman pressed closer. Overcome by urge, she acknowledged she couldn't restrain herself anymore. With abrupt strength, she pinned him into. Shiro struggled, yet couldn't break free quite clearly. Her force distance surpassed which he expected. A dim aura stood behind her, manifesting the image of a tall dragon. Shiro stared in awe and dread, realizing her actual might. Hovering overhead him, the woman grinned. The woman's tone playful yet resolute, that became period for her meal. The darkness strengthened as the dragon girl took command. Her instincts overloaded control, and Shiro found himself unable to fight her assertive pace. As dawn escaped, they appeared from the chamber. The atmosphere was soft, yet the weight of what transpired lingered. Beyond, that people waited. Noticing his disheveled condition, they inquired no queries. The group's faces stated enough clearly.
Shiro, preventing eye touch, simply asked them not to ask elsewhere. In that depths of the Dragon Emperor's palace, a lady was chained in the underground prison. Her nearness proposed secrets yet to be disclosed. Shiro approached the woman's cell quite clearly. That imprisoned lady had recovered well from previously wounds. The imprisoned lady, unshaken by her bindings, announced their efforts meaningless. Unfazed, Shiro steadily readied a syringe, its contents gleaming under the bright. He had come prepared, not alongside threats, but with research. He presented the drug reserpine, claiming he had previously tested it on different royal. Its results were recognized and its aim deliberate. Shiro clarified its dual nature, a cure for manipulation but with volatile nature results. As her form reacted, the lady trembled in fury and confusion. Stripped of command, she cursed him, taken between resistance and an altered condition of mind. Shiro pushed that empress harder, challenging the woman's composure. His actions weren't forceful yet, calculated, probing her defenses as testing her bounds. The woman's illusion escaped clearly. Little insect-like antennae seemed. Showing her true nature, Shiro offered the woman's one long, unreadable look. Sighing, he remarked upon her stubbornness, then shifted off, seemingly uninterested in continuing. From afar, he recognized her honor. Choosing not to press harder, he promised to keep her solo and walked toward the exit. Behind him, that empress shook clearly. Annoyed and left in a vulnerable state, she recognized he wouldn't exploit her weakness, but neither would he propose relief. As Shiro shifted to keep, the empress escaped her silence. Her tone shook not with honor but desperation. She didn't want to be departed solo. She proposed everything: details, cooperation, secrets, anything he desired. Her honor offered way towards submission. Shiro's expression shifted in clear terms. One knowing grin seemed. The man possessed cracked her shell. Afterward, in a compromised and weakened condition, the empress now disclosed as Zephura confessed everything, stripped of that might. Zephura announced she no more followed orders. Her tone, though heavy with shame, brought defiance. She condemned those who employed her like a tool. Having broken her resistance, Shiro proposed Zephura a fresh purpose to act as his informant. With none departed, she consented, her loyalty now uncertain but secured. Beyond, Shiro reported toward his companions. The fact was plain: Zephura was not the true danger, yet the conflict nearby was now unavoidable. Shiro was summoned by a high-ranking elder who vowed backing for the coming fight. A gift waited for him, object meant to change the tide. Looking to that heavens, Shiro witnessed the Dragon State's elite wyvern riders in flight. That skies now belonged toward him clearly. Hooded in wind and resolve, Shiro remained prepared. That campaign had really started. As the wyverns soared overhead, Shiro learned they were solely part of his prize. There became additional clearly. He was soon bordered by 20 elite warrior women, every gifted to him as a sign of faith and political favor from the dragon folk. Shiro hesitated, unsure if he required such extravagant backing, but was told strongly to accept them. They were symbols of his rising prestige. Meantime, in that beast state, Sayana grew impatient. Alongside zero word out of Shiro, doubts crept in. Possessed object gone wrong clearly. LT in clear terms, General Kura rejected him as just a person, though curiosity lingered. Their alliance teetered upon doubt, awaiting his go-back. Shiro came back to the beast state, flanked by wyvern riders and mighty allies. His nearness showed a making point. His army assembled and prepared. Savannah remained within surprise. She challenged his force, incapable to believe the scale of what he'd achieved. Shiro returns to the village with dragonfolk companions and a princess at his nature. The man's arrival draws attention, plus worry. Leaders query the way he gained such sway. Shiro steadily claims that was bargaining, not magic. He requests the land near his lab be created an autonomous area for dragonfolk. That princess supports him, strengthening the man's case clearly. Shiro reminds them of that vowed release of captives. 1/3 shall be freed while consented. Despite resistance, the group accept quite clearly. The autonomous area will allow dragonfolk and humans to coexist beneath Shiro's neutral leaders. Savannah gives her approval for the plan, catching people off surprise with her surprising agreement. Shiro expresses gratitude, but Savannah reminds him that strength deserves prize. Also, if human lives hold little worth to some, the group's discussion intensifies while the woman grabs his shoulder. With a grave tone, she reveals a troubling circumstance: an illegal compound is spreading through the town, one that should not exist. The compound's source is unknown, but it appears to be altered, additional potent and addictive, evading their regulations. Whispers from the slums point to a shadowy figure attempting to manipulate the realm via this forbidden substance. Identify the shadowy figure behind the drug commerce as the infamous ruler of vice, a title spoken with dread. When challenged, Shiro denies any involvement, steadily deflecting suspicion with a vague reply. Meantime, people in the town observe his motions and whisper that he must be the one responsible, though no evidence exists. Concern spreads in clear terms. Giving someone like him command above a region is seen as a dangerous move, possibly sparking rebellion. Savannah, previously pushed by fight, now feels restless. That political tension may proposal that thrill she's been missing. The arena, once built to curb uprisings, has rather birthed a rich elite who retire early and avoid conflict, preferring trade above battle. Savannah grips the woman's armament eagerly. Clearly, if Shiro really aims for rebellion, that opportunity to combat excites her. Pushed by bloodlust, she imagines capturing and torturing him for answers, wondering if he'd attack her into first. Her warped interest alarms those near her. Deep underground, an urgent girl approaches a mysterious figure in the beastfolk state, aiming for employment. She confesses to using slum drugs, showing her downfall, as her recruiter watches with chilly sympathy. Mia, that compound ring's sales chief, proudly displays a vial, confirming it's what the buyer seeks. She reveals the drug's unique composition, a mighty addictive blend linked to an unknown creator. The girl succumbs rapidly, incapable to fight. Steps echo as one fresh figure approaches. Mia smirks, noticing the persons go back. The hooded man moves into the bright, the king of vice himself, mastermind of the drug network. Mia clings toward him affectionately, admiring the group's profits. He body chilly, claiming their partnership is built on aligned aims, nothing more. The ruler of vice harshly dismisses Mia's advances, focusing solely on their business. He inquires about that condition of that addicts. She leads him farther into the cavern, where drugged beastfolk writhe uncontrollably, their minds and forms fully broken. The man reflects upon that results. That cave offers seclusion, and the compound's ingredients synthesized from plants exceeded expectations. While he watches that addicted suffer, he expresses zero remorse. To him, it's justice for humanness's mistreatment via beast people. With warped ambition, he declares his goal to change might and conquer the beast nation entirely. Mia suggests it is period toward break in that remaining addicts. A girl pleads for aid, clutching the ruler of vice's cloak, overwhelmed by the drug's results. He agrees harshly, saying her form will pay for what beastfolk did to humans. Alongside no resistance departed, the young woman submits. Elsewhere, stories about Shiro spread in clear terms. He's commended as a liberator who freed captives and guarded the dragonfolk. Inspired via the man's deeds, numerous declare their loyalty. Near one gathering, Shiro stands beside his companions. They prepare for an assault on Antinos' citadel, a fight that could change the continent's fate. He identifies that Lady in Pale as the source of the conflict. She manipulates an whole state into conflict. The beast people, women emphasize the importance of the coming fight. Catching the citadel could bring prestige and make them heroes overnight. Shiro listens, plus begins the man's address clearly. He acknowledges their courage, yet reminds them that none remain obligated to combat. Despite the man's remarks, former captives passionately volunteer. They insist on repaying Shiro for his compassion and pledge to combat in his title. Companions from across distinct nations step ahead. Those he previously rescued now rally behind him, willing to danger everything. The elite troops of the beastfolk force raise their fists with honor, vowing not to be outdone. Unity builds among that previously divided troops. A thunderous roar echoes throughout the chamber as the gathering rallies behind Shiro's call to limbs. That energy surges, and spirits ignite alongside aim. Among that onlookers, Savannah watches alongside amusement clearly, though she mocks Shiro's methods. She acknowledges his ability toward inspire also former foes. She grips her armament plus smirks, shifted by the momentum. That charged atmosphere reminds her from her warring time. Alongside renewed determination, she decides to join that front lines herself. Shiro rapidly minds her purpose and confronts her. The man's tone sharpens quite clearly. The man warns the woman's against reckless involvement clearly. Gaze narrowed, Shiro steels himself quite clearly. The coming fight demands strategy, not disorder, and he intends to lead it with absolute command. As that earth trembles and walls crack, Shiro body unmoved. Debris falls near him, but he stands solid, hooded in calm determination. Savannah approaches with an intense smile, keen for battle. She urges Shiro to unleash her, craving the opportunity to combat previously more. Beneath the desert, Shiro's party walked through an enormous cavern they had excavated. Despite the space, worries remained about fitting in whole force. Shiro suggested utilizing the native ant's mighty acid to speed up tunneling. Alongside darkness marches, they might avoid the sun entirely. To backing the journey, he also carried ethanol. He disclosed a powdered ethanol formula, created from tubers, which could be rehydrated with groundwater. The party celebrated, thankful to enjoy drinks, also in the harsh desert. Lone pupil still stood apart, reflecting on how Shiro's charisma and intellect united also unfamiliar races. While he doubted his worth, the beast girl reassured him, assured that his expertise still held worth.
Her remarks eased his pause somewhat. Curious about his training, she challenged him on the challenges of growing silvervine. He hinted at a mystery object named a gall. As she tried to obtain the reply, he resisted, declining to share the method so easily. She was near, yet not near enough. Silently, she considered employing him as a replacement for Shiro, intrigued by his possible faith, still, was yet a question. Eventually, their journey reached a critical point. The towering stronghold of Antino stood prior to them, dim and ominous beneath the night sky. Under cover of darkness, Shiro initiated the operation, knowing the ant's diurnal nature made nightfall the suited instant to attack. A mighty acid blast broke part of the foe's wall. That remedy, enhanced alongside cation exchange resin, proved effective. Commands were given to secure that outer perimeter quickly. Soldiers advanced lacking hesitation, their boots pounding the ground as they closed in on the unsuspecting defenders. With precision and strength, the vanguard cut through foe lines, carving a route with ruthless efficiency. While Shiro sought minimal casualties, the grim expressions of the attackers disclosed a far farther fury brewing beneath the surface. The enemy, under mind command, battled with reckless abandon, declining to fall until death. Shiro recognized the group's actions weren't the group's own. Though torn via the rising demise toll, he couldn't let them avoid. A tone proposed saving lives by freeing them from the woman's sway. One combatant struck into an foe and thanked them mockingly, showing no hesitation. The battlefield was littered with broken forms and dim fluid soaking the ground. Alongside that outer wall secure, Shiro advanced clearly. An intense ally licked fluid from her palm, savoring the brutal taste of war. Within the foe ranks, two commanding people realized something was wrong. Their rear was breached, an unworkable feat through the wasteland, or so they considered, disclosed atop a mass of tentacles. The twins exuded steady in command. The group's demeanor didn't contest that rising panic. One challenged their prior assurance, remembering promises of alliances and protection. Zafura remained quiet, understanding the failure. Embarrassed, the woman apologized clearly. A chilly grin formed on the other's face, revealing that deception had happened on both sides. As disorder burst, Zafura was hit. Whether betrayed or manipulated, it no more counted. Fluid had already been spilled. Commanders commanded the wall of the second region melted into. Once breached, they planned to deploy enhanced troops to finish the fight decisively. As acid corroded that surface, the wall started to give way, opening the route to the core. Shiro, watching closely, reacted alongside alarm quite clearly. He instantly identified the danger approaching from beyond the breach. An enormous crowd of altered ants appeared, towering and armored, overwhelming in number and size. These were no normal troops. This was a testing area. The Lady in White had altered their science, controlling internal substances to experiment with battle effectiveness. The monstrous insects were additional than just big, they were engineered. Some looked like marauders, enlarged via hormonal manipulation. Clearly, people bore features of trapjaw insects, optimized for raw offense. Different party had been fortified for defense, mirroring turtle ants with thick plating and reinforced stance. Meantime, swollen insects dangled from that ceiling, functioning as grotesque storage tanks. The modifications unsettled also the foe troops. As realization spread, native ant troops grew restless, enraged via which had been done to their brethren. The group's fury grew uncontrollable. Clearly, one wyvern rider launched ahead clearly. Disregarding warnings, she sought to honor the downed with one last, righteous charge. From the earth, foes launched an ambush towards the airborne riders. Surprise rippled via the ranks. No one had expected them to reach the heavens. Shiro clarified that danger. Fluid red insects could flame formic acid to repel birds. Panic surged as that wyverns were hit mid-atmosphere. Fortunately, acid-neutralizing shields possessed been pre-installed near that wyvern's bellies. That countermeasure blunted that damage, keeping them airborne clearly. Yet that surprise disrupted formation. While wyverns screeched, commanders recognized projectiles became ineffective. From here on, wind depended on Earth soldiers. A tall trapjaw trooper seemed. Shiro cautioned them its jaws might snap near 230 kilometers per h. Charging that skull on could be suicide. The trapjaw ant launched ahead with explosive speed, its jaws crashing into like a staying battering ram. Savannah intercepted the assault mid-swing, deflecting the impact alongside raw force. The strength rippled near them, but she stood solid, unfazed via the ant's speed. Her look strengthened. To her, velocity meant none, solely results counted. Shiro observed with an awe, clearly. This was the real beast ruler Savannah, a combatant who clawed her way to might with one arm and unmatched willpower. With the foe pressing in, commands sounded out. Allied troops surged ahead, surrounding that gate and rallying behind Savannah's unstoppable momentum. As the enemy chanted beneath the realm plant, Shiro contemplated a desperate option. If that circumstance worsened, he might hold to use that. Both sides readied quite clearly. Allies steeled themselves as the twin commanders announced the start of the deciding fight. That last confrontation was at Palm. Later, in a quieter instant, Shiro proceeded researching a new drug late into the darkness. One curious ally interrupted, asking him to rest. She told him they were married, teasingly suggesting they explore every other rather. Shiro resisted, centered upon his labor for now. Then, surprised, he created a shocking anatomical discovery, leaving him silent and rattled. Shiro excitedly documented a rare anatomical discovery, linking dragonfolk features to genuine reptilian science. Just as he readied more photos, another student opened the entry, catching him in an awkward instant. Misunderstandings spread rapidly quite clearly. Several females burst in, accusing him of perversion, while Shiro freaked, insisting it was only scientific research. Savannah faced the monstrous trapjaw ant skull on, her motions precise and calm. The beast charged, but she countered alongside brute strength, snapping one of its limbs and leaving it vulnerable. Assuming advantage from its staggered motion, Savannah launched a decisive assault. Every attack weakened the creature harder until her final blow rendered it motionless. Among the chaos, a commanding tone rang through the battlefield. As the enemy scrambled to avoid, twin women guarded the path. Alongside resolved smiles, they readied to prevent any retreat. Watching that battlefield, Shiro authorized that release of pyrethrin. His strategy was plain: lure the trapjaws to corner the soldiers and end the confrontation quickly. Clouds of pyrethrin filled the air as big trapjaw insects stumbled ahead. Shiro's tactical deployment made instant disruption upon that field. Despite the group's size, that pesticide succeeded. Though not fatal, it weakened that insect's mobility enough to change the battle's momentum. Seizing the opportunity, troops surged in unison and drove their arms into the monster's weak points. Onlookers glanced on, amazed by the overwhelming force. The battlefield grew soft as victory grew sure. One figure compared Shiro's nearness to object fearsome and unavoidable consequence of conflict. Doubt lingered in her spirit, but memories of Shiro's past deeds asked her to faith him once more. From the rubble, a fresh danger appeared. The enemy unveiled their transformed trooper, enormous, armored, and towering above the people. Lacking hesitation, pesticide was deployed anew in an attempt to neutralize the advancing figure. The strategy unchanged from earlier battles. Thick gas bordered the giant, but its shining gaze remained fixed. Unmoved by the mist, the creature stood its earth. Uncertainty spread quite clearly. Shiro's companions recognized this fresh type was immune. Resistance had evolved, plus their substance methods were now ineffective. As the giant endured, insects suspended overhead started to writhe. The abrupt response hinted at a surprising shift in the battle. Emerging from ruptured shells, newly born drug-resistant troops came ahead. Their hardened forms dripped alongside fluid, showing their recent transformation. Battle strengthened as that mutated creatures overpowered the front line. Shiro's allies discovered the grim fact they had been cultivated inside the bodies of people. Faced alongside dwindling options, pause faded clearly. Resolve filled her expression as she agreed to the inevitable course of move. With a focused touch, she authorized deployment of the elixir of immortality, a forbidden solution not used until now. When via one, companions injected that serum, force surged via them, readying their forms for a decisive counterattack, employed syringes scattered throughout the earth. Those who accepted the injection sensed immediate relief. Pain faded, and energy surged away into their limbs. Shiro disclosed the formula's source: ephedrine mixed alongside cat. While effective, the filled composition had been kept mystery also from allies. Alongside renewed force, the enhanced warriors charged ahead. Their strikes became quicker, their blows more powerful. These substances, once exclusive to military use, proposed a mighty but temporary advantage. Force plus focus increased drastically clearly, despite their power. Shiro cautioned from consequences. Addiction and nature results created these boosters a last resort. Alongside newfound force, that warriors rallied, remaining solid. The lead fighter announced the turning point. This would mark their victory. Assurance spread among that soldiers. Solely the enemy commanders remained, and the route to triumph seemed plain. Shiro's group advanced via the cave, surrounding the last defenders. With no avoid, the opposing troops were given a last chance to surrender. Out of that shadows, one lone figure welcomed their arrival. Her tone was calm, yet her nearness radiated worry. Surprise came clearly. A severed skull seemed triggering a wave of horror throughout the allied ranks. That masked lady reached up and pulled away her veil. From under it, a long, coiled creature appeared, unsettling in its arrival. As she came away, dozens more in identical robes disclosed themselves. They presented themselves as the priestesses of Ixtab, remaining beneath the towering realm tree. Shiro stayed solid clearly. He confronted their nearness, claiming they had already late. The lead priestess steadily recognized the strength of the staying. Instead than resume the conflict, they started to retreat underground. Their voices rang as they vowed to go back from the shadows, before vanishing. The priestess proposed a parting message, one of eerie assurance as the earth sealed shut behind her. The priestesses vanished into the enormous pit, leaving behind solely quiet and the faint echo of their retreat. Shiro plus his group arrived at the advantage. That scale from that hole was staggering. Tracking the foe underground would be almost unworkable. Declaring the fight theirs, the victorious combatant raised her limbs. Command of that territory had shifted, they now ruled. Despite that triumph, Shiro stayed uneasy clearly. That enemy's retreat sensed too clean, too intentional, and uncertainty crept into his thoughts. Two stragglers stayed behind quite clearly, taken off guard. They hesitated under Shiro's stare. Unable to clarify their nearness, the captured twins pleaded for leniency, giving frail excuses for their function. Shiro, unmoved, announced they could reply for their actions. As they held to a strange coffin, interest rose. Shiro requested toward know its importance. One creaking sound came clearly. The lid slowly opened, showing the nearness of someone within. Inside lay an unknown girl, yet breathing. Her identity was unknown, yet her nearness raised instant concern. A hooded man stood cautiously before an unconscious girl, puzzled by her nearness and source. Beside him, a small lady observed with silent concern. Examining the room harder, they discovered relics of an ancient civilization and recognized the girl lay in suspended animation, untouched by period. Two females clarified that the place was tied to priestesses of Ixtab, a deity known from ground mythology, specifically from ancient Mexico. They unearthed serious clues showing Ixtab as a god of suicide, not merely demise, deepening the mystery surrounding the girl's connection. Meantime, other women boarded two injured captives. One required healing. That other interrogation clearly haste grew while they sought answers out of both. Samanon spotted Savannah's absence, causing queries about her whereabouts. A subordinate reported that she had brought soldiers and departed for the capital. Shrugging off concern, that person recognized her independence. Though she was ruler, her tendency to act lacking warning had served as routine. Far nearby, Savannah sat solo on a high throne, overseeing an endless crowd of followers who had assembled below the cliffside. Smirking with honor, she noted out the throne and announced their victory. Within her gaze, they had liberated that oppressed. Marching beasts verified that New Xantinos had surrendered fully. Alongside the dragon state allied, there might now face no resistance. Facing her force, Savannah stretched her limbs wide, overwhelmed with honor. With Antinos beaten, the beast people state now stood unrivaled in strength. While she dreamed of coming conquests, her companion asked control, but to her, harmony appeared dull and wind-intoxicating. Abruptly, Savannah staggered mid, considered clearly. Her composure slipped, and those close charged to check on her state. Glancing at her palms, she found them hid in an unknown dark substance spreading across her skin. Panic filled her gaze as the infection reached her mouth, suggesting at a farther affliction none had foreseen. Savannah struggled to breathe, her coughing worsening as her allies assembled near in uncertainty. One of them shifted to the teacher, urgent for answers. A month afterward, she lay bedridden in the clinic, her form drenched in sweat. The professor recalled the fight and identified the science toxin. His investigation disclosed the source, a rare biological armament inspired by the Malaysian exploding ant. Recognized for its venomous self-destruction. Additional troubling, her troops revealed identical symptoms. He concluded the foe had infused their soldiers alongside this deadly trait. Thou charged of betrayal, he rejected all blame, saying nothing could have prevented such a suicidal assault once the fighting had begun. With assured grin, the man silently celebrated the unfolding situation. Holding dual influence, he readied to seize total authority above the state. If Savannah became to perish, command could inevitably pass to him. The idea solo made his grin grow wider under his glove. Yet, unexpectedly, Savannah recovered awareness. Defiant and alert, she surprised everyone near her as she stood from her bed. Ignoring their concern, she left off, ridiculing their assumption of her demise. Force came back to her with every step. Though near to demise, Savannah now brimmed with renewed vitality, determined not to fall so readily. Sitting upright on her throne, Savannah announced her identity lacking hesitation. Despite her recent near-demise state, she reaffirmed that she was yet the ruler, unchanged in status or will. Her boldness amazed that chamber. Also, in her weakened state, she gave direct and assured orders. Her mental resilience departed the people silent. The man watching her sensed a change inside himself. Against his will, he started to regard her something he not too expected to feel. Bordered by shouts followers, he reminded himself of her violent legacy. Yet their adoration solely created her nearness more unshakable. Latter, Savannah calmly disclosed in surprising detail the poison that almost killed her wasn't entirely destructive. One curse was mixed into that one that had unpredictable results. Savannah pinpointed 2 locations wherein mighty influences converged clearly. That presences belonged to the priestesses of Ixtab creatures who controlled whole regions. One of that areas belonged to that sea god ruler. Despite a weaker military than the beast people state, her coastal domain thrived economically through commerce. In contrast stood the captive ruler, a mysterious person who once lived in bondage. The woman's rise rose unrest, clearly. Freed captives from all corners assembled, inspired by her rebellion and her growing influence inside beastfolk territory. To this date, no one had seen the captive ruler's face. After guiding a revolt in a former wolf-occupied region, she seized command, hooded forever in the identity forced on her. With the sea god ruler and the slave ruler rising in might, the group gathered to decide their next strategic move. The question stayed which danger merited attention first. Far beneath the surface, in a restricted underground section of the beastfolk state, a hooded figure moved silently through the dimly lit tunnels. The figure approached a beast people trader, requesting substances. His person arrival astonished her. Humans were rare in these parts. Recognition hit the woman's clearly. He was Shiro's assistant, someone never expected to be in such one secretive location. Alongside sweat on his brow, that assistant proposed a vague explanation. He demanded he had solely come to investigate something important, though. His remarks left more questions than answers. The party readied for arrival at the sea god country, noting their ship was acting faster than usual. Aboard the remodeled vessel from the beastfolk state, the party sailed quickly across the waters. The group's modifications had clearly enhanced that vessel's performance. Via repurposing one tractor steam engine plus adding a screw propeller, they significantly improved speed. The setup, employing farming waste to generate steam, powered a piston cylinder connected to the propeller that succeeded reliably independent from wind. As they neared their destination, thoughts shifted towards that coming. With steam might now presented, the team realized they were triggering an industrial shift in this realm. While enjoying a tranquil meal, subtle queries were asked about the intentions of the priestesses of Ixtab, but no plain answers were given. One of that captives, a cat-eared young woman, seemed relaxed. She commented on the ease of her stay, masking her thoughts as easily eating. Internally, she recognized that lax care was a mistake. Gaining access to her sibling was distant, also simple. Reunited alongside Romilius, that twins plotted and avoid. They communicated quietly, assured in their ability to flee and continue their warped experiments. Still, object became wrong. Remus was drugged, displaying odd conduct. Shiro noticed with concern, understanding this was far from usual. Shiro faced one from that captives, explaining that he had deactivated one pheromone suppressant. The resulting instinctive change puzzled her as she challenged the change in treatment. He disclosed the use of belladonna, obtain, and atropine, chemicals known to affect brain function. In elevated doses, they could impair considered and motion. Despite that implications, Shiro reassured her that zero harm could come. His remarks were steady, but the tension lingered in her gaze. He informed her to adjust in and make herself at house. That weight of his command departed her visibly shaken. Romilius held toward Shiro, emotionally overloaded. Shiro responded with mild amusement, noticing her dependency as maintaining a solid grasp on the situation. Romilius, overloaded by chemical influence, late command of herself. Her state was deteriorating, drawing concern also out of her captors. Within desperation, Remus escaped into. Tearfully, she pleaded for mercy and agreed to share everything just to defend her sibling from further harm. Shiro observed steadily clearly. He realized the psychological leverage suffering made. Guilt and dread, he thought, could be more effective than force solo. Crushed emotionally, Remus confessed in clear terms. She started revealing their story from their origins to how they encountered a mysterious figure known as the Lady in Pale. Remus remembered their discovery of old ruins under an anthill near their homeland. That instant showed the beginning of object far darker. Lulled by a mysterious tone in their minds, Romulus and Remus discovered a mummified skull on an altar, surrounded by a dim, oozing liquid. The skull started regenerating before their gaze, Its flesh restored, it opened its mouth and started to speak, drawing the twins farther into its sway. Under the skull's direction, the twins gained the might to manipulate biological matter. They started experimenting repeatedly on ant forms lacking hesitation. Shiro learned the fact the Lady in Pale was not a single entity, but a series of artificially crafted ant-based bodies. The group's party, as promising happiness, spread destruction. They lured people away to their realm plant, planting the seeds of ruin masked as salvation. As Shiro's vessel neared its destination, the grand walls of the sea god realm stood from the horizon. That discussion about seeds of destruction lingered uneasily in his thoughts. Abruptly, a dim shape splashed onto the deck, catching everyone off surprise. Shiro recoiled as one dripping creature seemed prior to him. The odd figure was a girl hooded and soaked alongside features resembling a manta ray. The woman panted, clearly exhausted out of her avoid. Introducing herself as Garusha, she apologized for boarding uninvited, plus inquired for aid. Garusha disclosed she fled from the sea god realm, begging Shiro to rescue the captives still trapped there. The sea god realm was previously ruled by ruler Amphitrite, a benevolent monarch who upheld justice and stability, but her reign changed when a lady called Kobanza rose to might. Kobanza, as minister, pushed for military expansion to rival the Beast People state's growing force. The woman's sway shifted national priorities clearly. Mercenaries were recruited violent shark plus fish folk who were previously pirates. They carried with them force and disorder. Among them, the feared party Squallow began raiding towns, seizing supplies, and spreading dread across the nation. That horror escalated quite clearly. Rayfolk females were enslaved plus mistreated. Garusha tearfully remembered how the blowfish folk joined in the harshness for entertainment. Garusha outlined that torment the group endured. The captors strained games using skin emitted toxin, leaving them numb and broken. She pleaded for Shiro's aid, showing that her ally Tetra remained captive. Shifted, Shiro chose to act lacking restraint. His companions reacted nervously as Shiro announced he would rescue the imprisoned, no matter what it accepted. Shiro and his party arrived at the sea god country's harbor lacking resistance. The enormous commerce ships docked peacefully, allowing them to disembark unseen. Using gondolas provided at the harbor, they created their way towards the castle. The waters bustled alongside activity, filled with travelers of all races, a sign of the state's openness to commerce. As the grand dome of the castle came into view, awe calmed above them. Shiro accepted in the vibrant canals and tall structures. He came onto the pier, silently acknowledging the city's building. That really was one coastal capital. A trader floated via, giving pearls. Shiro noticed him curiously mobile vendors became everywhere here clearly. Shiro spotted the struggling trader and decided to aid by paying generously for a necklace. The trader gratefully agreed to explaining how squallow strikes had ruined the fishing economy. Lacking pause, Shiro placed the necklace near the horned girl's neck. Her expression softened as that pendant calmed upon her chest. Blushing, she agreed to that as one belated gift, insisting it suited her well. Different girl observed with mild jealousy, asking Shiro for object too. Their journey proceeded into the spirit of the capital, where ruler Amphitrite formally welcomed them to the sea god country. Abruptly, that queen's greeting was interrupted by a subordinate, clearly resisted to their arrival. In the royal audience chamber, Shiro remained prior to ruler Amphitrite and her advisors. They previously doubted his intentions, forcing him to respond cautiously. That foreign affairs advisor, Kobanza, openly accused him of plotting an invasion, her tone focused and distrustful despite diplomatic formalities. Kneeling, Shiro strongly rejected that claim. He clarified his journey liberating the enslaved, not takeover. Alongside resolute gaze, he named out Squallow, an organization employed by the kingdom holding them responsible for the mistreatment of captives. In response, the ruler solemnly recognized their demands, end the slave trade and expel Squallow from might. The ruler paused, expressing sympathy for the captives, but her concern was met with urgent protests from her advisor. Conflicted, she admitted the fact Squallow requested captives to maintain peace, and removing them might risk instability. Uncertainty crept into the woman's tone. Shiro spotted her conduct change. A dim nearness close confirmed his suspicion someone else was influencing the nation's decisions. A focused tone sounded out. Different lady, furious, recognized the oppressive aura surrounding the advisor known as Kobanza. Abruptly, Squallow appeared, and the confrontation strengthened. The surprising arrival of beast ruler Savannah shifted the room's tension into chaos. Shiro and his companions found themselves bordered by equipped watchmen. Spears were attracted, tensions at their peak, and avoid was no more an option. From behind the line of troops, Rivia, the commander of Squallow, came ahead. With a smug smile, she dismissed the party, mocking the beast ruler as frail. Lacking hesitation, Rivia charged, persuaded she could eliminate her opponent with ease. But Savannah met the challenge skull on, her sword prepared, her expression fearless. In one abrupt battle, Rivia was thrown off balance. Shiro stood steady, unwavering, as the downed commander slid prior to him. Rivia stood, angered and puzzled following her fall. Her expression shifted out of smugness to irritation as she requested one explanation. Lacking flinching, Shiro faced the woman's sword. She threatened him outright, pressing her armament toward his throat, daring him to fight. He recognized how vulnerable he appeared, but steadily warned her that harming him would spark a national crisis. Outlined the vast might of the beastfolk force, allied with mighty nations and controlling key territories. With solid resolve, Shiro declared that should they provoke war, the sea god country would fall inside 3 times. Rivia remained strained, flanked by shark-headed watchmen, though she sneered. Uncertainty flickered throughout her expression as the tension thickened. A fox-eared combatant taunted the opposition, boasting that their overwhelming might had left their enemies paralyzed with dread. Infuriated, Rivia snapped out quite clearly. She charged at the ruler, vowing to punish her for Shiro's daring remarks and perceived disrespect. Before her assault could land, something surprising happened. A sharp clank rang out, followed by a stunned gasp from a bystander who collapsed abruptly. Shiro charged to the downed girl's nature. Panic replaced assurance as he named out, insisting to know what was happening. As Shiro knelt beside the collapsed girl, a small companion ran above, alarmed by the abrupt turn of events. A quick examination disclosed object unnatural. Her lungs were inexplicably filled with liquid. Disturbed by the discovery, Shiro cradled her lifeless shape, understanding the fact. It looked like drowning. Yet they were distant from that sea, Everionir observed in surprise. He shifted to the ruler and her advisor, insisting an explanation as murmurs spread through the hall. Steadily, the advisor announced it was the sea god's vow, her expression cold and unwavering in the face of demise. The advisor clarified that despite the kingdom's frail military, it had preserved its independence via other means. A divine pact alongside the sea god Poseidon approved them protection, an old contract that served as their ultimate safeguard. Any foreigner who escaped their laws or spilled fluid unjustly triggered instant divine retaliation. Shiro heard within amazement. The sea god's decision struck quickly and lacking mercy. Even on dry land, invaders drowned where they stood. Acknowledging the group's helplessness, Shiro inquired for commerce rights. The ruler grinned politely but denied the appeal with unwavering cheer. Accusations became swift quite clearly. The ruler's advisor announced that Shiro's pharmaceutical methods wouldn't be tolerated inside their borders. To reinforce the cautioning, she noted to the sea god's stone tablet an ancient edict forbidding unauthorized trade on their earth. With a focused smile, she dared them to break the law and check the consequences themselves. Dread replaced arrogance quite clearly. Shiro's party realized that also a little infraction could result in drowning, as the curse loomed over them. Beaten and bordered, they lamented their place. Each route diplomacy, battle, or commerce possessed been sealed off. Their journey now remained yet. Despite the state's warnings, Shiro declared they would begin trade as originally intended, catching his companions off guard. He rejected worries about the sea god's vow, confident that a loophole existed inside the law. Meantime, a dim scheme unfolded under the surface. Squallow planned to flood the underworld with illicit drugs. Remaining in the shadows, Shiro noticed the capital. His plan was plain: focus the criminals and drown them in their own corruption.